Dr. Olivia Garrett looked out the viewport of the transport ship as it approached Proxima Station. The massive ring-shaped structure glowed with blue and green lights against the darkness of space. After 6 weeks of travel, she had finally arrived at the Galactic Medical Academy. "Dr. Garrett, please prepare for docking procedures," the ship's AI announced. "Proxima Station gravity will engage in 30 seconds. Olivia gathered her few belongings. As Earth's representative to the most prestigious medical school in the galaxy, she had been told to pack light. The academy would provide everything she needed for her year-long teaching position. The gravity shifted, and Olivia felt the familiar pull that matched Earth's own. At least that would be comfortable. She had been warned that most other aspects of life among aliens would not be. Humans are classified as Deathworlders, Admiral Peter Douglas had explained during her briefing. Earth's high gravity, atmospheric, toxins, extreme temperature variations, and dangerous wildlife have made us unusually resilient compared to most galactic species. What we consider minor injuries could be fatal to them. The transport doors slid open. Olivia took a deep breath and stepped into the station's arrival hall. A tall, spindly creature with pale blue skin and 4 arms waited for her. Its eyes, all 6 of them, blinked in sequence. "Dr. Garrett of Earth," the alien said in perfect English. "I am Dean Zixtaral. Welcome to the Galactic Medical Academy." Olivia extended her hand before remembering her cultural training. She quickly withdrew it and instead bowed slightly. "Thank you for the invitation, Dean. I'm honored to be here." Zixtaral's skin flushed a deeper blue. "No offense taken, Doctor. We have studied your human greeting customs. However, Arcturian skin is quite sensitive. A handshake might cause significant bruising." Olivia nodded, making a mental note. This was exactly why she had been sent here, to learn about alien physiology, and teach them about humans in return. "Your quarters have been prepared with Earth-standard accommodations," Zixtaral continued, gesturing with one of his lower arms. "Tomorrow you will meet your students. They are quite eager, though somewhat apprehensive." "Apprehensive?" Olivia asked as they walked through curved corridors lined with strange plants. "You are the first human to teach at our institution. There are concerns about your methods." Olivia had expected this. Earth had only joined the Galactic Alliance 20 years ago. Humans were still seen as violent, unpredictable, and primitive by many species. "I understand," she said. "I'm here to learn as much as to teach." Zixtaral stopped at a door that slid open automatically. "These are your quarters. Please rest. Your biological rhythm must be disrupted after the journey." After the dean left, Olivia explored her new home. The room was larger than she expected, with Earth-like furniture that looked recently manufactured. The entertainment system, food synthesizer, and climate controls all had instructions in English. Olivia sat at the desk and activated her tablet. She reviewed her first lecture again, wondering how alien students would react to videos of human surgery. Earth medicine often involved procedures that seemed violent, cutting into bodies, setting broken bones, stopping bleeding with pressure or cauterization. She had been warned that most galactic species practiced much gentler medicine. They used advanced technology that worked at cellular levels without breaking the skin. They had medications that could repair damaged tissues without pain. Surgery, when necessary, was performed with precision tools guided by AIs, not human, hands holding metal instruments. But humans had developed their methods for good reasons. Earth medicine had to be fast, adaptable, and possible without advanced technology. When a hiker broke a leg 50 miles from the nearest hospital, someone needed to set that bone using whatever was available. When a soldier was bleeding out, on a battlefield, a tourniquet made from a belt could save their life. Olivia's communicator chimed. A message appeared. Course roster, Emergency Medicine, 101 Instructor, Dr. Olivia Garrett, Human, Earth Students. Vreelik, Nebulite, Alpha Centauri, Karzak, Mantari, Betelgeuse System, Shala, Lumidian, Vega Prime, Tealvos, Aerolite, Sirius. Pursier, Nxor, Cephaloid, Tau Ceti, +15. Additional students from 12 species Olivia spent the next hour researching each species. The Nebulites were gelatinous beings with no solid organs. Mentari resembled Earth insects but with advanced cognitive structures. Lumidians had crystalline bodies that processed light as nutrition. Each species had completely different medical needs. How could she teach emergency medicine that would apply to all of them? Earth techniques might seem primitive, but they were built on universal principles. Stop bleeding, maintain breathing, prevent shock, treat for pain. The next morning, Olivia dressed in her formal white coat with the Earth medical symbol, a staff, with 2 snakes pinned to her lapel. She made her way to the teaching theater with Dean Zixtaral. "Your students await," the dean said as they reached the door. "Remember, Doctor, many have never seen a human before. First impressions are important." Olivia nodded and straightened her shoulders. She walked into the room and immediately felt 20 pairs of very alien eyes turned toward her. The teaching space was arranged in a semicircle, with each station adapted for different physiologies. In the front row, a shimmering blob of blue gel quivered in what might have been excitement or fear. Beside it, an insectoid creature with compound eyes and 4 arms clicked its mandibles. A being made of what looked like living crystal glowed, with internal light. Other students were even stranger. One appeared to be a small cloud of gas contained in a special suit, while another floated in a tank of greenish liquid. "Good morning," Olivia said, looking around at the diverse group. "I am Dr. Olivia Garrett from Earth. Today we begin our study of emergency medicine, the practice of saving lives when time is critical and resources may be limited." She activated the display screen behind her, showing an image of human paramedics treating an accident victim. On Earth we have a saying, the golden hour. This refers to the critical time period after a severe injury during which treatment has the highest chance of preventing death. A soft murmur ran through the class. "Before we discuss specific techniques," Olivia continued, "I need to understand your species' approaches to medical emergencies. How do Nebulites handle a patient with severe physical trauma?" The blue gel blob vibrated and a mechanical translator spoke. "We engulf the injured being in our healing matrix and perform cellular restoration from within." Olivia nodded. "And if the injured being is 3 times your size?" The Nebulite went still. "This has not been considered." "That," said Olivia with a smile, "is why we're here to learn from each other. Emergency medicine isn't about having the perfect solution. It's about finding a way to keep a patient alive with whatever you have available." As the class began to ask questions, Olivia could see both curiosity and concern in their alien faces. This would be a challenging year, but perhaps one that would change medicine throughout the galaxy. The next day, Olivia prepared for her first full lecture. She had spent the night adjusting her presentation after learning more about her students' species. She needed to show them real human emergency medicine, but she didn't want to terrify them on the first day. "Computer, reduce the blood visibility in surgical video sequence 3 by 30%, she said as she reviewed her materials. "Adjustment complete," the computer replied. "Warning, content may still cause distress to non-Deathworld species." Olivia sighed. There was no way to make trauma surgery look gentle. On Earth, saving lives often meant invasive, messy procedures. She couldn't water it down too much, or the educational value would be lost. When she entered the classroom, all the students were already seated. The insectoid Mentari, Karzak, clicked his mandibles in what Olivia hoped was a greeting. The crystalline, Lumidian Shala dimmed her inner light slightly in acknowledgement. "Today we will discuss basic emergency response techniques for traumatic injuries," Olivia began. "We'll start with the human approach, and then discuss how these principles might be adapted for your species." She displayed an image of a human, car accident victim with a serious leg injury. "The first priority in this scenario is to stop the bleeding," Olivia explained. "On Earth, we often use direct pressure followed by a tourniquet if necessary." The video showed paramedics applying pressure to a wound, then wrapping a tourniquet tight around the patient's thigh. A soft gasp came from several students. The floating gas cloud, Tilvos, changed from green to a pale yellow. "I understand this looks forceful," Olivia said. "But in humans, blood loss can cause death in minutes, Sometimes we must temporarily cause pain to save a life. The nebulite Vreelik raised a pseudopod. Professor, in nebulite medicine, we would simply extend our healing matrix into the wound to seal damaged vessels without external pressure. An excellent approach, Olivia nodded. But what would you do if the patient was a solid-bodied species too large for your healing matrix? Vreelik's entire body rippled in what seemed like confusion. That is the purpose of this class, Olivia continued, to find ways to adapt when optimal solutions aren't available. She moved to the next topic. Now let's discuss cardiopulmonary resuscitation, or CPR. The video showed a human performing chest compressions on an unconscious patient. The demonstrator pushed down hard on the patient's chest, compressing it several inches with each push. This time, the reaction was stronger. Shala's crystalline body flashed bright red. Tilavos shrank to half his previous size inside his containment suit. Several students made sounds that their translators didn't convert, presumably expressions of shock. Karzak, however, leaned forward, his compound eyes fixed on the screen. "You deliberately break the patient's ribs?" he asked. "Often, yes," Olivia admitted. "The force needed to manually pump the heart is significant. Ribs can break during proper CPR, but this is considered acceptable compared to brain death from lack of oxygen." "Fascinating," Karzak clicked. "In Mantari medicine, we would never consider damaging one organ system to save another. This is efficient, if brutal." The cephaloid student, NXOR, who resembled a small octopus in a water-filled suit, waved, two tentacles in agitation. "But the pain. When the patient regains consciousness, pain can be managed later," Olivia said firmly. "First priority is survival. And yes, human emergency medicine often involves trade-offs that may seem harsh. But these methods were developed on a planet where medical technology was limited and dangers were many." As the lecture continued, Olivia introduced concepts like intubation, emergency tracheotomy, defibrillation, and field surgery. With each new procedure, she noticed the classroom dividing. Some students seemed increasingly disturbed, while others, particularly Karzak, showed growing interest. The breaking point came when Olivia showed a video of an emergency surgery performed at a disaster site. The footage showed doctors cutting into a patient's abdomen to stop internal bleeding after a building collapse. Shala suddenly emitted a high-pitched tone, and her crystalline body went completely dark. Two neighboring students carried her still, form from the room. "Lumidians experience temporary shutdown when emotionally overwhelmed," explained a helpful student. Vreelik had retreated into a compact sphere, a defensive posture for nebulites. Tilavos was now a tiny dot of yellow gas in his suit. "I believe we should take a short break," Olivia suggested. As the remaining students filed out, Karzak approached her desk. "Dr. Garrett," the Mantari said, mandibles moving precisely. "Your species approach is unlike anything in our medical texts. You treat the body as a machine that can be forcibly repaired rather than a delicate system to be coaxed back to health." Olivia wasn't sure if this was criticism or praise. "Human bodies are remarkably resilient," she explained. "We evolved on a high-gravity world with predators, disasters, and disease. Our medicine reflects that reality. Most galactic medicine assumes ideal conditions and unlimited resources," Karzak continued. "Your approach assumes neither. There is wisdom in this that many of my classmates fail to appreciate." After the break, several students did not return. Those who remained watched with a mixture of horror and fascination as Olivia explained the final concept of the day: triage. When faced with mass casualties and limited resources, human medical personnel must make rapid decisions about who receives treatment first, she explained. "We use a system that prioritizes those most likely to survive with immediate intervention." The translator struggled to convey the alien responses, but the message was clear. The concept of choosing which patients to treat first was morally repugnant to many galactic species. "You would leave some to die while helping others?" asked a horrified Vreelik, who had recovered enough to resume a more normal shape. "If necessary to save the greatest number, yes," Olivia answered honestly. "It's a difficult reality of emergency, medicine in resource-limited situations." After class, Olivia was summoned to Dean Zix Terrell's office. The dean's skin had faded to a pale blue-gray. "Dr. Garrett," Zix Terrell said, "I've received 17 complaints about your lecture today. Several students have requested transfers. Shala the Lumidian remains in medical recovery." "I'm sorry to hear that," Olivia said. "I tried to prepare them. However," the dean continued, "I've also received 9 requests from other students to join your class, and Karzak the Mantari has asked for permission to access Earth medical databases for independent study." Olivia was surprised. "Really? Your methods are shocking to us, Doctor, but some recognize their pragmatic value." The dean's 6 eyes blinked in sequence. "The Academy's board will meet tomorrow to discuss your curriculum. Until then, perhaps you could consider a more gradual introduction to human techniques?" As Olivia left the office, she found Karzak waiting in the corridor. "Professor," the Mantari said, "I would like to learn more about these emergency field techniques. On my homeworld, we lose many to accidents in the outer colonies where medical technology is limited. Your human approaches might save lives there." For the first time since arriving at the station, Olivia felt truly hopeful about her mission. Not all galactic species would embrace human methods, but some might see their value. Perhaps bringing Earth's tough, resourceful approach to medicine to the stars would make a difference after all. 3 weeks had passed since Olivia's controversial first lecture. Following the dean's advice, she had adjusted her teaching approach. Rather than showing full emergency procedures at once, she broke them down into smaller steps and explained the reasoning behind each one. This gradual method seemed to work better. Fewer students left the room in distress, though many still flinched at the more invasive techniques. Her class had changed too. 5 students had transferred out, but 12 new ones had joined. Curious about human medicine, Karzak had become her most dedicated student, often staying after class to ask detailed questions. This morning, Olivia was explaining the concept of improvised medical tools. In emergency situations, humans often need to use whatever items are available, she explained, showing images of makeshift splints, bandages, and tourniquets. A belt can stop bleeding. A stick can stabilize a broken bone. Even clothing can become bandages. Freelik, who had remained in the class despite his initial shock, raised a pseudopod. But wouldn't waiting for proper medical equipment result in better outcomes? Ideally, yes, Olivia agreed. But on Earth we have a saying, perfect is the enemy of good enough. Sometimes an imperfect solution now is better than a perfect solution that comes too late. Several students recorded this concept in their notes. Even after weeks of exposure to human medicine, many still struggled with the practical, sometimes crude approach that humans took to saving lives. The class discussion continued until a loud alarm suddenly blared throughout the station. Red lights flashed on the walls. "Emergency alert. Emergency alert," announced the station's AI. "Structural damage in Docking Bay 7. Decompression event. Medical emergency teams report to Sector 12 immediately." Olivia saw fear spread through her class. Many of the students had never experienced a real emergency. "What do we do?" asked Tilavos, his gaseous form swirling anxiously in his containment suit. Before Olivia could answer, Dean Zix Terrell rushed into the classroom. "Dr. Garrett, a supply ship lost control and crashed into the station. We have multiple casualties, at least 30 beings of various species. The medical staff are overwhelmed." The dean's skin had turned a dark blue with stress. "Most of our senior doctors are at the Rigelian conference. We need all available help, including students." Olivia stood up immediately. "We're ready. My students have been studying emergency response." She turned to the class. "This is not a drill or a simulation. Real lives are at stake. Who will help?" There was a moment of hesitation. Then Karzak stepped forward, his mandibles clicking firmly. "I will assist, Professor." Freelik's gelatinous body pulsed with blue light. "I too will help." One by one, most of the students volunteered. Only 3 remained behind, too frightened to participate. "Follow me," Olivia instructed. "Remember your training. Stay calm. Do what you can." They rushed through the corridors toward Docking Bay 7. As they got closer, they could hear cries and calls for help in various languages. The air smelled of smoke and strange chemicals. When they reached the emergency area, Olivia was shocked by the scene. The supply ship had crashed through the docking port, tearing a hole in the station's hull. Emergency force fields contained the breach, but not before significant damage had occurred. Bodies of various species lay scattered across the deck. Medical staff moved between them, looking overwhelmed and indecisive. Olivia immediately assessed the situation. This was exactly the kind of scenario she had trained for on Earth. Without hesitation, she took charge. "We need to establish a triage system," she announced loudly. "Karzak, use your multiple limbs and speed to check each victim. Tag them by severity. Red for immediate life-threatening conditions, yellow for serious but stable, green for minor injuries." The Mentari nodded and moved quickly through the chaos, examining victims with surprising skill. "Freelik, your healing matrix can stabilize small wounds. Focus on the yellow-tagged patients to keep them stable." The nebulite flowed toward the first patient Karzak had tagged. "Tilvos, your gaseous form can access tight spaces. Check for victims trapped in the wreckage." The aerolite student hesitated only briefly before heading toward the crashed ship. Olivia rushed to the nearest red-tagged victim, a Deltaran with a crushed breathing tube. The fish-like being was turning a dull gray as it struggled for oxygen. The Deltaran's unusual anatomy meant standard intubation wouldn't work. "I need a hollow tube, something small and rigid," Olivia called out. A station staff member handed her a piece of mechanical equipment with a small pipe. It wasn't sterile or designed for medical use, but it would have to do. "This is an emergency tracheotomy," Olivia explained to the horrified medical staff watching her. "It's invasive, but necessary." With steady hands, she made a small incision in the Deltaran's neck membrane and inserted the improvised breathing tube. Immediately, the being's color improved as it began to breathe again. Across the bay, Karzak was applying pressure to a bleeding Felucid, using all four of his arms to hold multiple wound sites. Freelik had extended his gelatinous body around a Centaurian child with a broken limb, forming a living cast that supported the injury while delivering pain-relieving chemicals directly through the skin. The station's regular medical staff watched, in amazement as the human and her alien students worked. Their methods were direct, sometimes crude, but undeniably effective. Patients who would have died waiting for specialized equipment or perfect conditions were being stabilized with whatever tools were at hand. A senior doctor approached Olivia as she finished stabilizing another patient. "Your techniques," he said, his translator struggling to convey his tone. "They are so physical, but they are working when our standard protocols cannot." Olivia barely had time to acknowledge him before moving to the next critical patient. For 3 hours, she and her students worked nonstop. They improvised splints from debris, used clothing for bandages, and applied direct interventions that many galactic medical practitioners would consider barbaric. But not a single patient died under their care. As the emergency finally came under control, Olivia found a moment to check on her students. Karzak was still working, his exoskeleton spattered with fluids from multiple species. Vreelik had expended so much of his healing matrix that his normally round form had shrunk to half its size. Even Talvos, who had been one of the most fearful students, had adapted quickly, using his ability to change density to help clear air passages in struggling patients. Dean Zix Taral approached Olivia, his skin now a pale lavender, a color she hadn't seen before. "Dr. Garrett," he said quietly, "the emergency response teams report that your group had the lowest mortality rate. Your methods, they are not what we would choose under ideal conditions, but today, conditions were far from ideal." Olivia nodded, too tired for a lengthy response. "Human medicine developed for survival, Dean. It isn't always pretty, but it works when everything goes wrong." As Olivia looked around at her exhausted but proud students, she realized something important had changed today. They had moved beyond academic discussion to real-world application. The aliens had seen firsthand why humans had developed their seemingly brutal medical techniques, and more importantly, they had begun to adapt those techniques to their own unique abilities. Emergency medicine would never be the same in the Galactic Alliance. News of the emergency response spread quickly through Proxima Station. The day after the accident, Olivia found herself the subject of many conversations as she walked through the corridors. Some aliens moved aside respectfully, others watched, with what seemed like concern or even fear. Olivia had expected controversy, but she hadn't expected to become the center of a station-wide debate about medical ethics. When she arrived at her classroom, she found it packed with students, more than double the usual number. Many stood at the back or sat on the floor. Among them were medical professionals from the station who had witnessed her team's work during the emergency. "I see we have some guests today," Olivia said, surprised by the crowd. Karzak clicked his mandibles. "Word has spread about our success. Yesterday, Professor. Many wish to learn human emergency techniques now." Olivia was about to begin her lecture when her communicator beeped. The message was brief. "Academy Board meeting. Your presence required immediately." "Class," she announced, "I must attend an urgent meeting. Please review yesterday's emergency procedures until I return." As she hurried to the administrative section, Olivia wondered if she was about to be praised or fired. The Academy Board consisted of senior medical professionals from various species, and she knew many of them had been uncomfortable with her teaching methods from the start. The boardroom was a large circular chamber, with seating adjusted for different physiologies. Dean Zixtaral sat at the head of the table, his skin a neutral blue. Beside him was Professor Yithnar, a serpentine Vesperian known for his conservative medical views. "Dr. Garrett," the dean began as Olivia took her seat. "The board has called this meeting to discuss yesterday's events and your future at the Academy." Professor Yithnar's forked tongue flicked out before he spoke. "Your methods during the emergency were highly irregular, Doctor. You performed invasive procedures without proper equipment. You enlisted untrained students in medical care. You implemented a triage system that prioritized some patients over others." Olivia nodded. "All true, Professor, and all necessary under the circumstances." "Necessary?" Ithanar's scales bristled. "You violated the most basic principles of galactic medicine. Non-interference with natural healing processes. Minimal invasion of bodily systems. Equal care for all patients regardless of condition." "With respect," Olivia replied calmly, "those principles assume ideal conditions. Yesterday was not ideal. Without immediate intervention, at least 12 patients would have died, waiting for proper treatment." Another board member, a glowing, energy being named Dr. Phalos, joined in. "The survival rates cannot be argued with, but at what cost? Your student Vreelik nearly dissolved his core matrix, saving that Centaurian child. The Deltaran you treated suffered pain that could have been avoided with proper equipment." "Pain versus death is not a difficult choice on Earth," Olivia said. And Vreelik volunteered, knowing the risks. The debate continued for nearly an hour. Some board members praised the effectiveness of human methods in crisis situations. Others condemned them as barbaric and unnecessarily traumatic. Finally, Dean Zixtaral raised all four hands for silence. "The board remains divided on this matter, but something unexpected has developed that must be considered." He activated a display screen showing a waiting area filled with aliens of various species. "These are families of patients you saved yesterday. They have submitted a formal petition requesting that human emergency medicine be made a permanent part of the Academy curriculum. They argue that while our traditional methods are superior when resources are plentiful, your approach saved lives when those resources were unavailable." Olivia was stunned. She hadn't expected support from the families. "Additionally," the dean continued, "we have received applications from 47 new students specifically requesting to study human emergency techniques." Professor Ithnar hissed softly. "Popularity does not equal ethical correctness." "No," agreed the dean, "but neither can we ignore such clear demand." He turned to Olivia. "Dr. Garrett, the board proposes a compromise. You may continue teaching, but with modifications. Your more invasive methods must be clearly labeled as last resort techniques, only to be used when conventional approaches are impossible." Olivia considered this. It wasn't perfect, but it would allow her to continue her mission. "I accept those terms. Dean?" As she left the meeting, Olivia found Karzak waiting outside. The Mantari student had become almost a friend over the past weeks. "How did it go, Professor?" he asked, mandibles twitching with concern. "I can continue teaching," Olivia told him, with some restrictions. "Good." Karzak's compound eyes seemed to brighten. "Many students are now interested in your methods. Even Shala has returned to class." Olivia was surprised. "Shala? I thought she was traumatized by my first lecture." "She was," Karzak admitted. "But yesterday she witnessed her cousin being saved by Vreelik using human-inspired techniques. She now sees value in your teachings, even if they disturb her." As they walked back toward the classroom, Karzak became unusually hesitant. "Professor, I have been thinking about your human approach. You adapt to circumstances using whatever is available to save lives. Could we not adapt your methods to better suit different physiologies?" Olivia stopped walking. "What do you mean exactly?" "Your emergency techniques were developed for humans, by humans, but I have 4 arms and exoskeletal strength. Vreelik can flow into wounds. Tilvos can change density to access tight spaces. Could we not develop emergency methods that use our unique biological advantages while incorporating human principles?" Olivia stared at the insectoid student. This was something she hadn't considered. Human emergency medicine adapted to limitations, but what if it could also adapt to alien advantages? "Karzak, that's brilliant. A fusion approach." The Mantari's mandibles clicked rapidly, his species' version of a pleased smile. "I have already begun experimental procedures. With your permission, I would like to present them to the class." When they reached the classroom, Olivia found the crowd had grown even larger. Some students sat on the ceiling or floated near the walls due to lack of space. All fell silent as she entered. "Today," Olivia announced, "we will begin something new. Student Karzak will present his ideas for species-specific adaptations of human emergency techniques." As Karzak moved to the front displaying diagrams he had created, Olivia watched the reactions of the class. There was interest, curiosity, and still some apprehension, but the pure horror of her first lecture was gone. These students had seen what human methods could accomplish in a real crisis. Now they were ready to learn, adapt, and improve. Olivia smiled as she saw Dean Zix Terrell slip quietly into the back of the classroom. The Arcturian skin had turned a deep purple, a color she later learned indicated deep interest and respect. Human medicine was finding its place among the stars, not by replacing alien approaches, but by complementing them. It wasn't about which method was better, but about having more tools to save lives across the galaxy. 6 months had passed since the emergency at Docking Bay 7. Proxima Station had been fully repaired, but the effects of that day continued to ripple through the Galactic Medical Academy and beyond. Olivia stood in her classroom, which had been expanded to accommodate the growing number of students interested in what was now officially called Adaptive Emergency Medicine. The course combined human crisis techniques with alien physiological advantages, creating something entirely new in galactic medicine. "Today marks the end of our first full semester," Olivia said to the class. "When I arrived here, many of you were horrified by human medical practices. Now look at what we've accomplished together." The wall display showed statistics from recent emergency responses across the station and on visiting ships. Survival rates had improved by 37% in crisis situations where traditional methods alone would have been insufficient. Karzak, now officially Olivia's teaching assistant, activated a second display showing modified medical tools designed for different species. These new instruments allow non-humans to perform emergency procedures based on human principles, but adapted to our unique abilities. The tools included a set of microsurgical attachments for Mantari's precise multi-limbed control, a specialized matrix enhancer that let nebulites like Vreelik extend their healing capabilities to larger patients, and density modulators that helped aerolites like Tilvos deliver oxygen directly to a patient's bloodstream. Professor Garrett's initial approach taught us principles, not just procedures, Karzak explained. Stop bleeding, maintain breathing, prevent shock. But instead of copying human methods exactly, We've adapted them to work with our natural abilities. Even Shala, once so traumatized by human medicine that she had shut down completely, now demonstrated a crystalline light therapy that could stabilize neural patterns in injured patients, a technique inspired by human emergency brain surgery, but performed non-invasively. As the class ended, Dean Zixtaral entered with an unusual group of visitors, representatives from Galactic Medical Command, the organization that oversaw healthcare across the Alliance. Their presence caused an excited murmur among the students. "Dr. Garrett," the dean said, his skin glowing a bright blue, "these officials have been monitoring our program with great interest. They wish to speak with you privately." In the dean's office, the head of the delegation, an elderly Medusan named Commander Loxar, got straight to the point. "Dr. Garrett, your work here has not gone unnoticed. The integration of human emergency techniques with alien physiological capabilities has created something remarkable." Olivia nodded, waiting for the rest. 3 days ago, there was a terrorist attack during the diplomatic conference on Rigel Prime, another official explained. Multiple species were injured, many critically. The local medical teams were overwhelmed. "But," Commander Loxar continued, "a group of your former students happened to be attending the conference. They organized the emergency response using your adaptive techniques. The results were unprecedented. 93% survival rate in a mass casualty event." Olivia felt a surge of pride. Her students had taken what they learned and applied it when it mattered most. "Galactic Medical Command wishes to establish similar programs throughout Alliance space," Commander Loxar said. "We are offering you the position of Director of Adaptive Emergency Medicine. You would oversee the implementation of these techniques across all major medical facilities." It was more than Olivia had ever hoped for. Her mission had been to share human medical knowledge, not to revolutionize galactic healthcare. Now she was being offered the chance to do exactly that. "It's a generous offer," she said carefully. "But may I make a different suggestion?" The officials looked surprised but nodded. "Karzak the Mantari has been instrumental in developing the adaptive approach. He understands both human principles and alien physiology in ways I never could. I believe he would be the better choice to lead this effort." There was a moment of silence. Commander Loxar's tentacles rippled thoughtfully. "An intriguing proposal, but he is still a student." "He won't be after next week's graduation," Olivia pointed out. "And he has already developed more adaptive techniques than anyone else in the program." After further discussion, the officials agreed to consider her recommendation. As they left, Dean Zixtaral turned to Olivia, his skin shifting through several colors before settling on a deep purple. "That was unexpected," he said. "Most beings would have accepted such a prestigious position immediately." Olivia smiled. "The goal was never for humans to teach aliens or for aliens to teach humans. It was to create something new together. Karzak represents that better than I ever could." The next week, as Olivia prepared for the graduation ceremony, an alarm sounded throughout the station. Unlike the previous emergency, this one was accompanied by a security alert. "Warning: unauthorized access in Central Hub. Security breach. In progress." Moments later, her communicator beeped with an urgent message. "Major diplomatic incident. Representatives from 17 species injured. Medical emergency teams requested immediately." Olivia ran toward the Central Hub, joined by Karzak and several other students. When they arrived, they found chaos. An extremist group opposed to galactic cooperation had attacked during a major diplomatic meeting. Security forces had contained the attackers, but many delegates were injured. What happened next proved that the program had succeeded beyond anything Olivia could have imagined. Without waiting for instructions, her students, former and current, organized themselves into teams, each applying adaptive techniques suited to their species and the patients they treated. Karzak coordinated the response, his 4 arms moving in precise patterns as he performed multiple procedures simultaneously. Vreelik extended his healing matrix over a wounded Arcturian ambassador, while Shala used her crystalline properties to scan for internal injuries without invasive equipment. Even Professor Ithnar, who had opposed human methods from the beginning, was there, using a modified human technique adapted for his serpentine physiology to help stabilize a critical patient. Olivia found herself with little to do except watch with pride as her students handled the crisis with skill and confidence. This was no longer human medicine or alien medicine. It was simply the best medicine for the situation at hand. When the emergency was over, Commander Loxar approached Olivia again. "We have made our decision, Dr. Garrett. Karzak will be appointed as the first non-human director of adaptive emergency medicine for the Alliance." Olivia smiled as she watched her students continuing to care for the injured. That's the right choice. True progress never comes from one species teaching another, but from all species learning together. As she prepared to return to Earth, Olivia knew that she was leaving something important behind. The galaxy would never again see human medicine as barbaric or alien medicine as impractical. Instead, the best of both approaches would continue to evolve, saving countless lives across the stars. The greatest gift humans had brought to galactic medicine wasn't specific techniques or tools, but a philosophy. When lives are at stake, use whatever works, adapt, improvise, never give up. It was the Deathworlder way, and now it belonged to the galaxy.